What you see here is a table we're going to go through of all the attributes of the rays and the rulers, where you can see my mouse up here in the left-hand top column, the chakra, gland and organ, the color or the jewel, the plane and the sense, the animal and the vocation, the religion and the master, the nations and the cities. And so this will give us a good idea. Well, once you start to know the rays a bit better, you can relate these to the various correspondences. So whenever we see over here on the left-hand side, the sign, zodiac sign that's bolded, that means that that ray is coming through that sign the most powerfully in this particular cycle. So Aries, which is a bearer of the first and seventh rays, and the first sign of the zodiac, is currently taking the first ray through it the most powerfully. And so we have Vulcan and Pluto as the co-rulers. And again, we have these non-sacred and sacred planets in esoteric astrology, Vulcan being a sacred planet, not yet officially discovered, but many, many sightings in the last 2 centuries, which have been well documented. An intramercurial planet, so it's very hard to see. And Pluto, the furthest planet from the Sun, and Vulcan, the closest planet to the Sun, are the 2 rulers of the first ray. So they encapsulate the entire solar system through their rulership. So we move on to the chakra, which is the crown chakra, of course, the head center. And of course, the endocrine gland associated with that is the pineal gland, which of course has a resemblance to the pine cone. Very important gland. And of course, the physical brain that the pineal gland is at the center of. So Aries astrologically rules the head, where all these are located. And of course, Aries can be very headstrong and impulsive. So the first ray of will or power works strongly through Aries, even if it's not in an individual's makeup rayologically. That person can certainly invoke that ray, as I've said before with any of the signs. Red is the classic color for the first ray, fire engine red, but it also can be white. And of course, there are harmonics of all the rays, or harmonic colors of all the rays. But for all our intents and purposes here, you'll see other assignations in different systems that talk about the 12 rays or the 15 rays or whatever. I'd take them all with a grain of salt, but these assignments here are being given by the Tibetan and are a good place to start. So red, orange and white are the colors, but of course orange is the color for the 5th ray, which the 1st ray does have a connection to. The diamond, the most evolved, arguably gem of the mineral kingdom, is the jewel for the 1st ray. All the kingdoms have their most evolved elements, the mineral kingdom, the plant kingdom, the animal kingdom, and the human kingdom. Of course, the kingdom of souls. The plane is the logoic. You might recall our previous tables that I sent out to, we sent out to all the people in the first couple of classes. The first plane at the top, canting from above down. Logoic as in the logos, as such, the word. The sense is touch, but not necessarily the type of touch that we think of. Probably a more rarefied touch. And so we have the animal as the elephant, either a 2nd ray, 1st ray, or a 1st ray, 2nd ray. What do I mean by that? Well, the elephant is known for its wisdom and its understanding, its huge intelligence. And there is the 2nd ray. But of course, it's a mighty animal that has great strength. And there is the 1st ray. So, likewise, the camel, an animal that can endure harsh desert conditions without water or storing water in its hump, is a good example of a first-rate animal. And of course, the vocations is where we see the rays in action in many ways. Politicians are often ruled by the first ray. It is the ruling, governing ray, the manager, the explorer, the executive, the leader. So with Aries, for instance, we can see the explorer and the leader, but of course, Aries expresses itself through many different occupations, as does Leo and Capricorn, the other two signs that the first ray comes through. We can see the leader in Leo, for instance, the executive in Capricorn, quite often Capricorn, and the manager as well as in Capricorn, but also Leo. And we're not just talking about sun signs or rising signs. For instance, I did a horoscope the other day where the person had a Leo moon and had been a management consultant for a lot of their life, but they're also a healer. The religion, the Hindu, and of course Shiva is the deity of the first ray. And Mount Kailash is Shiva's abode, reputedly, and is always depicted with a tiger skin and a trident, actually, which is interesting because that's Neptune's symbol, and there is a connection between the sixth ray ruled by Neptune and the first ray, but that's a bit longer story. We have the master or the Chohan of the first ray is Master Moya, and of course the Manu, who is above him, is the one who sets the archetype for the race over a very long period of time. And that position, or the office, if you like, of the Manu Moya will take over in the future. All right. And we have nations and cities ruled by the first ray. India, for instance, is a first ray soul. So again, we have the Shiva connection. Master Moya, who was a Rajput prince in his earlier incarnations. China, a first ray soul. Germany, a first ray personality, as is Britain, in fact. Don't know why Britain's not there, but anyway. The Jewish race, first ray soul. Geneva, the planetary heart center, first ray. And I've got Varanasi in India here as the first ray as well. Why? Because the first ray with Pluto has a lot to do with cremation and death. And so we have a picture here of Varanasi. I don't know whether any of you have been there or not, but it's a huge destination for people from all over India who take their loved ones who have just passed to be cremated there on the banks of the Ganges. That was quite a trip when I visited there in 1992. We'll get on to the second ray then. That finds its strongest expression, the second ray of love wisdom, as opposed to the first ray of will or power. It finds its strongest expression through Virgo in this particular cycle. And its two rulers are Jupiter and the Sun. Jupiter happens to be the hierarchical or highest ruler of Virgo. But also, of course, Jupiter rules Pisces, is the co-ruler of Pisces, and is the personality ruler of Sagittarius, the sign we are in at the moment as we are approaching the Sagittarius full moon. Most of you would have got your full moon, Sagittarius full moon newsletter today that I sent out. And Jupiter and the Sun both are rulers of the heart center and the physical heart. And of course, the thymus gland that is associated with the heart, the endocrine gland associated with the heart, that is really one's essential childlike essence, you could say. And there are all sorts of connections here. For instance, the second ray of love wisdom is the only ray to come through Gemini and Gemini happens to rule this gland, the thymus gland. Iolana says, I understand we can be receivers of multiple rays, but the one predominant personality can't be seen by looking at a chart. It is related more to the sign or to the planets. No, I keep on emphasizing this, that you cannot get the rays from the chart. So if you have a Libran sun, for instance, which takes the third ray going through it, that doesn't mean to say you're a third ray personality. They have to be ascertained independently of the horoscope, and the horoscope is simply an interface to the expression of the known and intuited rays. For example, a personality might be a third ray because he has a stellium in Cancer, or a fourth ray because he is mainly governed by the moon and polarized in the astral plane. It doesn't quite work like that. That's the short answer anyway. We could go into longer explanations, but we need to get through a fair bit of material today. So we're looking at the color here, indigo, which is the color of the night sky, almost black, but it's like indigo ink, really dark blue ink. And also light blue, funnily enough, which is the color of the sixth ray, or one of the colors of the sixth ray. And of course, the sixth ray is on the 2-4-6 even ray line. So there's a close connection between the second and sixth ray. Quite often people have a second ray soul and a sixth ray astral body, being the most common. And of course, sapphire, beautiful blue sapphire, is the gem associated with the second ray. And of course, the Kashmiri sapphires in particular are associated with the Master Kutumi, the Shohan of the second ray, who hails from Kashmir, at least in his last several incarnations. The magnetic plane is the plane in the sense is the intuition. Well, and not quite the intuition of the fourth level down here. We'll talk about that later. And the sixth ray is the ray of devotion. So we have a lot of the domesticated animals, the most advanced animals in the animal kingdom, the elephant, the horse, the dog. All of these have a sixth ray of some kind, but particularly the dog and the horse, there's a great devotion of dogs particularly that can be easily seen. But most domesticated animals have some sort of sixth ray connection, emotional connection with humans. So occupations, the teacher, the sage, the healer, the server, the scholar, the humanist. Of course, there are these occupations on all the rays, but this is a very second ray area for these particular occupations. You see the scholar, Virgo is the scholar, and the second ray comes through Virgo the most strongly at this point in time. The humanist could be related to Pisces, and so forth. The healer to Virgo as well, the teacher to Gemini, or to all those. The one who holds the office of the Christ or Lord Maitreya or the world teacher as is known is on the second ray of love wisdom. It is his ashram that embodies all the other ray ashrams because they are really sub-rays of the second ray of love wisdom. And that's the energy that humanity is learning all about in this particular cycle, the very long cycle of the Earth. And here we have a few second ray souls, Britain and USA, New York, Darjeeling, and the Occident or West in general is on the second ray. So we can see the importance of the second ray soul with Britain and USA, and particularly New York, one of the capitals of USA, of course. The second ray is also the soul ray of Darjeeling, one of the 5 planetary centers, and Darjeeling is the nearest outpost for the Masters of Wisdom to work through from their particular location not far north of Darjeeling, over the mountain range in the Himalayas. We'll move on then to the third ray. Oops. The third ray of active intelligence that comes through Cancer the most powerfully in the cycle, but also Capricorn and Libra, ruled by Saturn and the Earth. Saturn, of course, is exalted in Libra and is the ruler of Capricorn, and is in detriment in Cancer. So our Earth, I remind you all, is just as important as all the other planets. It has a part to play in the grand orchestra of the solar system. And the planets have other rays as well, by the way, but that's something we can't go into today. They have a personality ray, a soul ray, and a monadic ray. So Michael Robbins made a very interesting essay about that can be found on the makara.us website somewhere. I think it was in the old esoteric psychology journals that they used to publish. Anyway, if you are a beginner in the rays, then don't worry about that for now. Saturn and the third ray are associated with the throat center, the throat chakra, the doorway to the mental body. And of course, the thyroid gland is intimately associated with the throat. And a lot of people have thyroid problems in this day and age, given the greater and greater polarization upon the mental plane by humanity, and hence the difficulties of balancing the pairs of opposites on that plane. So you'll find that a lot of supplements, health supplements, have thyroid stimulating ingredients in them. Vocal cords, of course, are associated with the throat and the lungs, that one has to draw breath to speak and exercise those vocal cords. We've got a comment here. Rihanna says the Occident is a second ray soul. Is it right now expressing only the glamour of the personality? As humanity, we did not achieve to express soul ray energy. Well, yes and no. It's hard to really gauge that. Given some of the leading nations in the Occident are second ray souls as well. There's been a certain amount of success achieved with the second ray in the last few centuries through Britain and USA in particular. But there's ups and downs that you can draw on a graph, I guess, and the soul ray is a little bit dimmed at the moment in these nations. But we'll come back again. The plane for the third ray, the third plane counting down from above down, of course, is the atmic plane, and sight is the sense. Obviously, I can't go into deeper explanations with all these senses and so forth, but just to mention them, the cat is a classic example of the third ray of active intelligence. Super smart, very cunning in some ways. Do you own your cat, or does your cat own you? And of course, these animals were highly revered in ancient Egypt, which was on the third ray, and also the fourth ray, which the cat also embodies. The ray of beauty, for instance. The third ray, however, is the classic ray of the philosopher, the organizer, the economist, the astrologer, historian, the mathematics. Of course, you can see a lot of this in me. I've got strong third ray in my makeup. I regard myself as a philosopher that happens to do astrology and history. And so you can relate, again, these vocations to the signs. For instance, Capricorn and Libra are both signs of money, and hence the economist. Capricorn relates to the past, and hence history, and so forth. The religion was the ancient Chaldean religion, hundreds of thousands of years ago, actually, in the correct timeline, the esoteric timeline. And the Mahachon, the Lord of Civilization, is connected to the third ray. These three main hierarchical departments, the Manu, the Christ, and the Mahachon, make the basic trinity of the hierarchy. And the Venetian master is the master of the third ray. Not much is known about this mysterious person, but in a previous life, he was Paolo Veronese in Venice, hence the Venetian. France is a third-ray personality. China is a third-rate personality. We can see China's brilliance in manufacturing and economics and money. That's the third-ray province in many ways. The economist, the law of economy, and has the same rays as the Jewish race, in fact, 1-3. New York is the third-ray personality. And again, we have this ramifying influence of New York, which is basically the world in microcosm in one city. One of the most amazing cities on the planet. And of course, the second ray of love, wisdom, soul is the inscription at the bottom of the Statue of Liberty. Bring me your tide and bring me your, what is it? I'm probably going to mangle it. Your tide and pour your restless souls flung upon the shore or something like that. I have totally mangled it actually, but anyway, you get the idea, is that love, wisdom, energy is the soul of New York. The third ray is the money, it's the Wall Street angle, but it's also the incredible creativity there that's going on there, all the artistic and musical stuff that's going on. All right, so there's the fourth ray, the main ray that rules humanity, and coming through Scorpio the most powerfully in this cycle, the fourth ray of harmony through conflict, also known as the ray of art, music, beauty, comes through Taurus and also Sagittarius, but Scorpio the most powerfully in this cycle. Ruled by Mercury, the messenger, the intuition, and the moon. So the moon is the conflict part of the harmony through conflict equation, and Mercury is the harmony part. Mercury is a mediator. It harmonizes between opposites. It's a little bit like Libra in some ways. Now, the chakra given is the base, from depending on what level of evolution you're at. For ordinary humanity, the base chakra. It's interesting to note that when cell phones used to first come out, you'd see people wearing them on their belt at the base of their spine. I used to always laugh about that. Mercury, of course, rules communications. The Ajna Center for more advanced souls. I think Mercury probably also has a connection to other centers like the head, but primarily the Ajna Center, particularly the right petal of the Ajna Center, which represents intuition. And so the adrenal glands are associated with the base chakra, and of course the pituitary gland is associated with the Ajna Center. And we have the spinal column as well, that's related to ray 4. Diane asked, do we stay on one ray for each lifetime, or do we change rays each time? The soul ray stays the same, as we've said in other classes. I'm not sure whether you're new to this or whether you've missed the other classes or not. But the personality ray certainly changes each lifetime, and as do the personality rays, such as the mental body ray, the astral body ray, the physical body ray. Sometimes they'll stay the same, depending, but the personality ray usually always changes because of the danger of crystallization. Bright yellow is the color of the fourth ray, or cream. Jasper is the gem. The plane is the Buddhic, the intuitive plane, which Mercury rules, Mercury being one of the main intuitive planets along with Neptune, and smell is the sense. Some people are kind of clairvoyant through smell. There's a special word for it, I can't remember right now, but people can smell other people, so to speak, psychically, and but also physically, to get a sense of who they are. The cat, again, is a fourth ray creature. And of course, we have all the vocations: the artist, the musician, the mediator, there's Mercury again, the architect, particularly on the fourth ray, being a form of art. Poetry, there's the lyrical words that Mercury dreams up. The negotiator, Mercury again is the negotiator between the warring parties or factions. And of course, psychology. Many of the famous psychologists like Jung and Freud had the fourth ray in their makeup. As we discussed last week when we went through all the personalities. If in meditation, if we always see a color, could that be interpreted as a ray? Possibly, but it all depends on what you're meditating on. So the religion, the Egyptian religion, and of course the master Serapis is the Shohan or custodian of the fourth ray, and actually lives in Egypt, is based in Egypt. Blavatsky tells us around Luxor, very important part of Egypt. And we have countries such as Austria, Brazil, and the Orient in general as fourth ray souls. Austria is interesting because it's next to Germany, which is a fourth ray personality. Italy is a fourth ray personality. Tokyo is a fourth ray personality. I beg your pardon, Germany is a fourth ray soul. And of course, as I might have mentioned before, we saw a great crop of marvelous musicians emerge from those two nations in the last few centuries. Classical music. There is the expression of the fourth ray soul of those nations. All right, so we'll go to the next table. Oh, there was just a picture here of an alchemist in his workshop, and the alchemist is on the fifth ray of science, just as the magician is on the seventh ray of ceremonial order of magic, and the third ray as well. The third ray is the ray of the magician too. And the first ray, in fact. You see the magician tarot card at all? It's a very first ray symbol. All right, so yeah, we have to go back to the other view here and look at this next table. Yeah, ray 5. And the ray of knowledge or science coming through Leo the most powerfully in this cycle, but also Sagittarius and Aquarius. I discussed this particular triangle of Sagittarius with Leo Aquarius in my latest newsletter when I'm discussing a couple of different sections of the newsletter if you want to look into that. Venus is the only given ruler of the fifth ray, but we could also perhaps use Uranus, and also you can see Uranus as the ruler of the seventh ray. We could have Venus as the co-ruler of the seventh ray, but that's just a speculation of mine. It's not necessarily right. Venus, of course, we know is the goddess of love and beauty and sex, at least in its astral expression in exoteric astrology. But in esoteric astrology, it's the mind. It's the higher self of our planet as well. It's our sister planet in many ways. The beings who individualized humanity came from within an evolution within the Earth scheme that is related to Venus. As I discuss in my book, the Genesis Unveiled, Mysteries of the Root Races and Cycles. Again, we have the Ajna center associated with the ray 5 because Venus rules the left petal, just as Mercury in the previous table rules the right petal. Venus is the mind, Mercury is the intuition, pituitary gland, and the eyes, ears, and nose are associated with the pituitary gland and the Ajna center. Not that that will mean much to you at this point. We could go into a whole class discovering why these physical assignments are given. Orange is the classic color of the fifth ray. We noted that that was one of the colors of the first ray. Yellow, which was one of the colors of the fourth ray, but orange is the primary color. And indigo, which is the color of the second ray. And if we look at the color wheel, these 7 colors on a wheel, you'll always see indigo exactly opposite orange. So there's a very deep connection between the evolution of mind, represented by the fifth ray of science or knowledge, and the awakening of the heart, and the inextricably entwined evolution of those two factors. So topaz is the gem associated with ray 5, the mental plane, obviously, the intellect, the senses and planes, the alchemist, the researcher, the engineer, the analyst, the inventor are all occupations associated with ray 5. The forensic, the adaptation of any of these vocations in a particularly forensic sense, for instance, an accountant on the third ray, if he has strong fifth ray, would be an excellent forensic investigator of someone's accounts, for instance, that kind of thing. The ancient Zoroastrian religion is associated with the fifth ray, and the master Hilarion is the fifth ray Chohan or custodian that we discussed in the various classes on the masters. France is a fifth ray soul, and apparently will at one point in the future prove scientifically the existence of the soul, which is an amazing statement that DK makes. Austria is the fifth ray personality, and London is the fifth ray soul. So you can see all these advanced Western nations have unfolded quite a lot of the intellect and the mind. But of course, the heart tends to lag behind, but will eventually catch up in one cycle or another. All right, race 6. We have the sixth ray of devotion or idealism, which has been going out of incarnation for the last few centuries, but is still very strong because of its long incarnation process. Coming through Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces, but the most powerfully at the moment through Sagittarius. And ruled by Neptune and Mars, Neptune the sacred planet, Mars the non-sacred planet. And of course, both of those planets also rule the solar plexus center, which is the seat or the doorway to the astral body. And the pancreas gland is the endocrine gland associated with the solar plexus. So when we hear about people with pancreatic cancer, it usually has a lot to do with the emotions, the feeling nature. I gave an example, if you want to read it on my website, about Steve Jobs, who had a notoriously shocking temper. He had strong, I think he had an Aries moon, same as Bill Gates actually, both with Aries moons. Very explosive, very volatile. And Steve Jobs, it got the better of him, of course, and he died of pancreatic cancer. Once you've got it, it's very hard to heal it. So the stomach, of course, and the liver and any of the organs in the solar plexus center will all be affected by emotional energy if it's not controlled. The gallbladder, for instance, the classic color for the sixth ray is sky blue, which I like to call Buddhi blue. And the reason I call it Buddhi blue is because Neptune is the other major factor apart from Mercury of Buddhi or intuition. the direct knowledge that is beyond the mental plane. And so we have sky blue, but we also have red and silver rose. The horse and dog feature again for the sixth ray, as we looked at before. The dog is very devoted, but you don't find that with the cat. The cat can be devoted, I guess, very friendly and so forth, but it's more in the third and fourth ray. And the occupations, the minister or the missionary, the devotee in any area of human endeavor, the crusader. We had the crusades during the Piscean age, did we not? The religious crusades, Christianity against Islam, what a battle that has continued to be. The orator and the mystic. So we have the preacher, the orator, the Billy Grahams of the world, who can connect with people emotionally and deliver fiery speeches that move people, that shift their understanding, that get them excited. In fact, you see a lot of the fundamentalist Christians where they're all getting up and dancing and hallelujah, brothers and sisters. So we have the six ray religions, Christian, Islam, and Buddhist. Of course, the exoteric Buddhist religion anyway is very devotional. But all religions are devotional, and Jesus is the current shohan or custodian of the six ray. And of course, Catholic countries like Italy and Spain have strong six ray. Italy, a six ray soul. But Italy twice there for some reason. USA, a six ray personality. Russia, a six ray personality. I've been writing about that lately, about the fact that they're both six ray personalities and clash with that Mars energy clashing, and their idealism as well, with the six ray of idealism kind of projecting onto one another. That six ray shadow, you could say. Spain, a six ray soul, and I've mentioned this many times, even in the latest newsletter, in terms of the cruelty of the six ray, the shadow of the six ray that was evident during the Inquisition. Tokyo, a six ray soul. Tokyo, one of the 5 planetary centers, which I have assigned the solar plexus that you can read about on my website or in my books on various essays on the nations. All right, we can take questions or comments from other people too, by the way, not just the same people all the time, but anyway, we come to ray 7, which finds its strongest expression through Capricorn, but also Aries and Cancer in this cycle. Capricorn, of course, is the sign of is a manifesting sign because it's ruled by Saturn, the great manifestor, and of course Saturn rules the third ray, and it's a close relationship between the third and seventh rays. And so Uranus is the ruler of this ray, and you could put Saturn as a co-ruler for this ray, as you could with Venus. You could put Saturn as the co-ruler of the fifth ray. But Uranus is the main ray, and of course Uranus is the ruler of Aquarius. And it rules the sacral or the sexual chakra. I call Uranus's rulership here the seed of mind buried in the lower centers, waiting to be raised up to the throat center, the sacral throat relationship. The gonads are, of course, the endocrine glands associated with the sacral center, and the genitals are the part of the body related to the sacral. Juliana says, if the six ray is drawing out of manifestation on Earth, does this mean that the six ray souls are about to earn their liberation and initiation? Not necessarily. Perhaps for a certain cycle to a certain level, but we can't really say generally that that is the case. Good question though. Violet or amethyst color is the is the, well, amethyst is the gem for the seventh ray. It's slipped off the chart here. Oh, there it is. Violet, or the color of amethyst, is lilac. Lilac, for instance, is the color of the seventh ray, which of course is also the color of the etheric body that's related to the physical body, that's related to the physical plane, which is the seventh plane, and the seventh ray has a correspondence to the seventh plane, just as, of course, the sixth ray has a correspondence to the astral and so forth. So the physical plane, the quality of the sense of hearing, seventh ray. I mentioned in my most recent newsletter, actually, the sensitivity of the hearing of Nikola Tesla, who was in fact a Cancer. The seventh ray comes through Cancer, but also the sensitivity of Cancer, water sign. Seventh ray occupations: the ritualist, the builder, the magician, the administrator, the designer, the revolutionary. Of course, all religions are ritualistic. The seventh ray Shohan, we don't know the name of this master in this cycle. And of course, Russia is a seventh ray soul, whilst Spain is a seventh ray personality. And these relationships between countries that have similar rays, of course, are enhanced by their, in Russia and Spain's case, the seventh ray being in common. Rachel says, what is the most common ray for each of the bodies? Fourth ray for the mental, sixth ray for the emotional, and seventh or third for the physical, I believe. Most common soul ray is the second ray. We move on to looking at the literary, musical, and artistic styles of the rays. We may not get through all of this today. Don't worry. We can, it's just to give you a taste, of course. I don't want to overload you with too much information. Another comment here. Julie says, I'm curious why South America and Africa are not listed with the rays. They are in some ways. The fourth ray would be one of the major rays of Africa. And South America, the fourth ray as well. All the Latin countries have got strong fourth ray. Brazil is in fact a fourth ray soul that I talk about in my latest newsletter. I have a long section on Brazil, and I have several other essays on Brazil if you want to look them up on my website. The Tibetan didn't comment much on Africa or the African countries. And I have a special file on that I compiled once relating to all that. But the fourth ray is most certainly an important ray for Africa, and of course we have Africans living all over the world now. Every city, every country you can think of. I was on a train, a packed train yesterday in Lisbon with, that was probably half of the people in my carriage were African from some country in Africa. We're looking at the literary style of the first ray. Strong, trenchant, little care for style or finish. And we have examples of Martin Luther, Thomas Carlyle, and Walt Whitman, the poet. And there's a picture of old Walt just down here. Most of you Americans would be familiar with his poetry. Very beautiful. And, you know, all of them advanced souls. Musical style of the first ray delights in big orchestrals, crashing choruses, and with the fourth, sixth, and seventh rays, a composer, sometimes tone deaf. So we can look at people like Wagner, certainly a first ray in his makeup somewhere, and in some of his music. Artistic style loves strong contrast and colour, but rarely an artist, sometimes colourblind to more subtle colours. In general, without wisdom and love, a destructive and disintegrating force would result with the first ray. Creative and governing ray, strong willpower for either good or evil will always come to the front. Maybe the burglar or the judge who condemns him. A born leader, commander-in-chief, one to trust and lean on, one to defend the weak and put down oppression. Fearless, can have unrelenting cruelty and hardness of nature, strong feeling and affection, but does not readily express it. This is very interesting. These are all very true qualities of the first ray. In healing, the first ray type draws health and strength from the great fount of universal life by willpower, pouring it through the patient. There are healers on all the rays, okay? Not just the second ray of love wisdom. When approaching the great quest, the first ray type uses sheer force of will, taking the kingdom of heaven by violence. St. Paul was one of those initiates, in fact, who is now the Shohan Master Hilarion of the fifth ray, but had the first ray strong in his makeup and, in fact, was a Scorpio in that lifetime, ruled by Pluto, the co-ruler of the first ray. Just a moment. Right. We'll come back to the bigger writing here. Hopefully you can all read this anyway, but I'll just make it a bit bigger. Ray 2, literary style. His literary work or her literary work would always be instructive. The second ray is the teacher. The musical style is closely allied to this ray, the Song of Krishna or the cosmic sound. And of course the Master Kutumi is known to be a bit of a piano player. Artistic style always seeks to teach through art, and pictures would have a meaning. In general, second ray, tact and foresight, excellent ambassador, a first-rate teacher or head of a college, clear intelligence and wisdom, capacity of impressing true views on others, good businessman, if modified by the fourth, fifth and seventh rays. Soldier who plans wisely, foresees possibilities. Intuition is the best course to pursue, never leads men into danger through rashness, might be deficient in rapidity of action and energy, method of healing, learns thoroughly the temperament of the patient, thoroughly conversant with the nature of disease to use willpower on the case. Approaching the path, the second-ray person has a close and earnest study of the teachings till they become part of the consciousness, no longer merely intellectual knowledge, but a spiritual rule of living, thus bringing in intuition and true wisdom. So we'll go on to this third ray now, which is on your screen. And the literary style is too often vague and involved, but if influenced by the first, fourth, and fifth or seventh rays, this has changed. And under the fifth, he will be a master of the pen. Just a moment. I need to turn on some more lights in here. Yeah, the third ray is similar to the third sign, Gemini, and quite often makes a good writer. But the vagueness comes from the abstract mind, the philosophical mind of the third ray, and difficulty in putting it all together. Hence the importance of the fifth and seventh rays in particular that can help to ground that, to manifest that. Musical style, he'll love music, but unless influenced by the fourth ray, will not produce it. As an artist, his or her technique is not fine, but his subjects will be full of thought and interest. Of course, the fourth ray is the main artistic ray. In general, the abstract thinker, the philosopher and metaphysician delights in higher mathematics, and though hardly could be troubled to keep his own accounts accurately, imagination is highly developed, grasps the essence of truth, idealism is strong, the dreamer, the theorist, the wide views and great caution sees every side clearly, sometimes paralyzes one's action as a result. Good businessman, soldier, will work at a problem in tactics at his desk, but seldom great in the field. as the theoretician of the third ray, the strategist. In all walks of life, third ray is full of ideas, but is too impractical to carry them out, can be unconventional, slovenly, unpunctual, idle, regardless of appearance. If influenced by the fifth ray, makes perfectly balanced historian who grasps the subject in a large way, verifying every detail with patient accuracy. Third and fifth rays together make the truly great mathematician who soars into heights of abstract thought and calculation, bringing the results down to practical scientific use. There's the grounding energy of the fifth ray that I've mentioned a few times already. Healing, the use of drugs made of herbs or minerals belonging to the same ray as the patient whom they desire to relieve. Approaching the great quest, deep thinking on philosophical, metaphysical lines till they are led to the realization of the great beyond and of the paramount importance of treading the path that leads thither. To use an archaic word that DK sometimes indulges in. I'm not sure whether I mentioned before, DK has had the Tibetan, the master who wrote the books through Alice Bailey, only a few Western incarnations in the last couple of thousand years. And we speculate that one of them may have been around the 16th, 17th centuries when that kind of language was being used. Here we have some third-ray types, some philosophers. Plato with his Timaeus book and Aristotle. This is taken from the great big picture that's part of our weekly people sitting around discussing philosophy. And this painting is by some famous, I think it's Da Vinci, isn't it? Or someone like that. Anyway, speaking of painters, Ray 4, Art and Beauty. As a writer or poet, his work will often be brilliant and full of picturesque word painting, but inaccurate, full of exaggerations and often pessimistic. There you have the storyteller. Dylan Thomas is a great example of that, who Bob Dylan, in fact, took his name from, the Irish poet. And I have also a profile that I wrote about Dylan Thomas that you can find on my website. In music, the fourth ray compositions are always full of melody, and the fourth ray man, woman loves a tune. You can see how the fourth ray is strong in Ireland. You'll be at the bar in Ireland and someone will just burst into song. And so most of the great musicians and composers have the fourth ray in their makeup, as of course Austria and Germany, who are fourth ray souls. Artistic style is the fourth ray is preeminently the ray of colour of the artist, whose colour is always great through drawing, though the drawing will often be defective. Watts was fourth and second rays. I think I'm not sure who that is. I think it might be the British guy who was the Zen meditator, Alan Watts. Always loves colour, can generally produce it, if untrained as an artist. A colour sense appears in choice of dress or decorations. I apologise for some of the grammar here in these notes. I remember I had this edited by someone else. I'll blame them for now. Years ago. So I need to revise this somewhat, but a good example of the fourth ray artist is Nicholas Roerich, who I feature prominently in my newsletters, and even in my latest newsletter I have a picture of the philosopher. This takes up half the page. His colour is just extraordinary, of course, and he has the seventh ray ceremonial order in his makeup. When you have the fourth ray with the seventh ray, you have the best artist in many ways. Fourth ray is the ray of struggle, which pertains to to rajas or activity, and tamas, which is inertia, where they are both equal. The person is torn between those qualities, which if successful can lead to the birth of Horus, born from the throes of constant pain and suffering. This is the great mystery of the fourth ray, which, as I've told you before, is the main ray that rules over humanity. We bring harmony from conflict at various stages of our lives over many, many different lives. We invoke spiritual energy. It comes into our system. It creates conflict with the existing status quo, and we take measures, physical, or emotional, or mental, to harmonize that conflict until we reach the next rung of the ladder, so to speak. And so we move forward gradually in the evolution of consciousness. Tamas or inertia equals love of ease and pleasure, hatred of causing pain amounting to moral cowardice, indolence, procrastination, a desire to let things be, to rest, and to take no thought of the morrow. This is true. The fourth ray can be the ray of cowardice or courage, those two extremes. Rajas or activity is fiery, impatient, ever urging to action, makes for a life of perpetual warfare and unrest. Friction and experience gained may produce rapid evolution, but may as easily become a ne'er-do-well as a hero, as much as a hero. The ray of dashing cavalry leader, the Welsh were known as very strong on this type of reckless risks that were taken in battle, and the Welsh are totally fourth ray. Celtic, you see, the Scottish, Irish, and Welsh are all Celtic, where the British are far more Anglo-Saxon. Excuse me. Makes for a life of perpetual warfare and rest, etc., etc. Reckless of risk to himself or followers, will lead a forlorn gambler, full of enthusiasm and plans, easily overwhelmed by sorrow or failure, but quickly recovers from all reverses and misfortunes. How's the sound going, everybody? Are we good? The School of Athens by Raphael. Thank you, Juliana. I'm just getting a notice here saying I've got a dodgy internet connection, but we'll soldier on in the true sixth ray fashion. Now, I was going to go off on another tangent there too with this fourth ray. Yeah, remember the happy, sad masks, which are a symbol of the fourth ray that are used in drama. There is the enthusiasm, the pairs of opposites, the highs and lows, the valley and the mountain experience. The fourth ray type will generally talk well, sense of humor, very good sense of humor, of course. Varies between brilliant conversations and gloomy silences, according to mood. Moody. The fourth ray is ruled by the moody moon. So there is the fluctuations, the emotional fluctuations that the moon represents. The high tide, the low tide, and in between. A delightful but also difficult person to live with. Healing through massage and magnetism used with knowledge. Approaching the path, self-control, thus gaining equilibrium amongst the warring forces of the nature. The lower and extremely dangerous way for the fourth ray type is Hatha Yoga, according to the Tibetan. And Jim says, why is Hatha Yoga dangerous for the fourth ray? Well, I'm not quite sure, but I know that the Tibetan says about 5 or 6 times, and I've had discussions with my yoga friends about this throughout his teachings, that Hatha Yoga is kind of redundant. I know that might make a few people react, but he talks about the importance of Raja Yoga, and that if Raja Yoga or meditation is conducted properly, then all the other yogas, the devotional yoga, bhakti yoga, and hatha yoga will find their right place. So I think he's talking mainly for disciples on the path, where he reckons it should be below the threshold of consciousness. But of course, there's a huge yoga explosion in the world, and of course, of fitness in general around the world. Conversely, we have the other side of the scale where many people are obese and in very bad health. But we have both of those things. And this is related to the seventh ray, which rules the physical etheric body or plane that is responsible for this. And also a lot of people who have taken the first initiation and are equilibrizing the etheric with the physical. But I didn't really answer your question, but I have to move on now. We've only got a few minutes left, another 15 minutes. Of course, here's Nicholas Roerich, a self-portrait that he probably painted in the Kulu Valley where he lived and where I visited his house in 1992, my travels through India. He was responsible for over 7,000 paintings, an incredible output. I'm forever amazed because I've seen thousands already, but I still discover new ones regularly. Lemurian, yeah, the Hatha Yoga was the yoga for the Lemurian root race when the infant humanity was learning to control and coordinate the physical body. They were quite big giants and clumsy, I guess. So that was the first yoga that they learned, to coordinate and refine the physical form. In Atlantis, which relates more to the emotional development, there was Bhakti Yoga. And for this fifth root race, the third root race, or the one that follows Atlantis and Lemuria, is Raja Yoga. That is the main yoga that humanity should be practicing. But it all depends on what stage of evolution you're at. I've done yoga plenty of times and still do yoga stretches, regularly. So I think the Tibetans talking about with the fourth ray can tend to get obsessed with things, can tend to get to overdo it, and particularly if you have the fourth ray on certain vehicles, it may cause problems. So I'm not quite sure about that. All right, so Sabrina is asking about initiation. We have covered this extensively. Have you been in our other classes, Sabrina? But of course, initiation is something that occurs through our own self-initiated efforts over many lifetimes until we take a formal initiation in one lifetime or another. And at the moment, for instance, many people are waking up, reversing the wheel and taking the first initiation, where the first glimpse and realization of the Christ consciousness within the heart is brought about. And the second initiation is a lesser group of humanity who are going through the initiation of the emotional body. And the third initiation relates to the initiation of the mental body. This is regarded by the hierarchy of the Masters of Wisdom as the first true initiation, which relates to the consciousness of the solar system. So that's it in a nutshell, but a very brief nutshell. We're going to have a class on initiation, so we'll get into that more. No worries, Sabrina. Yeah, it's a sub-science. Initiation is a sub-science of esoteric astrology, which is regarded as the science of all sciences by the Tibetan. And so science of initiation is ruled by, the various initiations are ruled by different planets. If you want to look at that more, you can look at my book called The Initiations of Krishnamurti, where I go through his recapitulated initiations and his major initiations he took in that life, and make the correspondence with his horoscope and the planetary criteria that was available and was working, in fact, at those various dates in his life. Also with Alice Bailey in my biography of Alice Bailey, which is in one of my books, Soul Cycles of the Seven Rays, Volume 1. Well, I think we can finish off today with this table, so I don't want to rush, but we're looking here at a couple of magicians from the left-hand path and the right-hand path. Gandalf from Lord of the Rings, of course, and Saruman, both, of course, on the seventh ray. You'll notice that Saruman has a trident, a little bit like Shiva's trident. There's the first ray of will or power. And Gandalf similar. Anyway, let's look at ray 6. The poet of the emotions, such as Tennyson, all the romantic poets of the 17th and 18th century, very strong on the sixth ray. It was a very strong six-ray sub-cycle at that time that I do cover in one of my books as well. You can maybe find more information on my website about that too. And the writer of religious books, either in poetry or prose. The sixth ray is the ray of religion, remember, and devotion, and of gushy emotions. The sixth ray musical type will always be have melodious order and will often be the composer of oratories, and of sacred music. I'm just trying to think of a European composer on that line. Doesn't quite come to mind right now. But of course, the 17th, 18th centuries, there are many musicians that had the sixth ray strong in their makeup. Artistic style devoted to beauty and colour and all things lovely. But his productive style is not great unless the influence of one of the practically artistic rays, the fourth or the seventh, indeed. In general, the sixth-ray type is full of religious instincts and impulses, intense personal feeling. Nothing is taken equably. Everything is either perfect or intolerable. Friends are angels, enemies are the reverse. His view is formed by the way the person appeals to him, or on the sympathy or lack of sympathy which they show to their favorite idols, whether these be concrete or abstract. He is full of devotion. It may be to a person, to a cause, etc. They must always have a personal God, an incarnation of deity to adore. The best type makes the saint, the worst type makes the bigot or fanatic, the typical martyr or the typical inquisitor, as in the Spanish Inquisition. All religious wars or crusades have originated from the sixth ray of fanaticism. Sixth-ray type is often, however, of a gentle nature, but can flame into fury and fiery wrath. There's the fiery pulpit preacher, will lay down his life for the objects of his devotion or reverence, but not lift a finger to help those outside his immediate sympathies. The soldier who hates fighting, but often when roused in battle fights like one possessed, especially with the fourth ray. Never a great statesman nor a good businessman, but maybe a great preacher or orator. Healing through faith and prayer, which is a legitimate form of healing, of course, that Tibetan comments upon. Approaching the path through prayer and meditation, aiming at union with God. So you can see how this energy is so prominent in the world today still, even though the sixth ray is going out of incarnation, because so many astral bodies and nations are conditioned by the sixth ray. There we go, ray 7. The literary style of the ray 7 type would be remarkable for its ultra-polished style, and such a writer would think far more of the manner than of the matter in his work, but would always be fluent both in writing and speech. Francis Bacon was a good example of the seventh ray, and of course his future role in the next incarnation was Chauhan of the seventh ray, ashram, and he was the one who overshadowed Shakespeare and was of course fond of writing apothegms, which are kind of polished little gems of very succinct writing. Musical style not listed. Handel and Bach were born on the seventh ray cycle that started in 1780, I think. They enriched many established German styles through skill and counterpoint, harmonic and motivation. I'm not sure what this motive organization, and the adaptation of rhythms, forms and textures from abroad. Rhythms, forms and textures in not just music but in everything is a sign of the seventh ray. Appreciation for texture and form, whether that's sound texture or material texture in building or fabric. The artistic seventh ray is the ray of form, the perfect sculptor who sees and produces ideal beauty, the designer of beautiful forms and patterns of any sort. Here you have your Michelangelo, of course, and your Da Vinci. Would not be successful as a painter unless the influencing ray was ray 4, of course, the combination of 4 and 7, the very highest type of artist like Rurik, form and colour being both in excelsis. In general, the seventh ray type, which is a ray strong in me, by the way, as well as the third ray, delights in all things done decently and in order. Yes, according to rule and precedent. The high priest, the court chamberlain, the soldier who is born genius in organization. The ideal commissary, general, who will dress and feed the troops in the best possible way. The perfect nurse for the sick, careful in the smallest detail, though sometimes too much inclined to disregard the patient's idiosyncrasies and to try and grind them in the iron mill of routine. Well, for the first part of that description, Florence Nightingale certainly fits the bill, and my regular newsreaders will know that I wrote a profile on her, quite a lengthy one. I think it was this year. Was it in Virgo? Maybe the Virgo newsletter. Worth a look. Will often be sectarian, will delight in fixed ceremonials and observances, in great processions and shows, in reviews of troops and warships, in genealogical trees, in rules of precedence. The bad type of seventh ray man is superstitious, has a deep interest in omens, in dreams, in all occult practices, spiritualistic phenomena, etc. The good type is absolutely determined to do the right thing and say the right word at the right moment, hence great social success. And hence also the courts of Europe, where this word courtesy or courtesan comes from. Healing relies on extreme exactness in carrying out orthodox treatment of disease. On him, the practices of yoga would have no physical bad results. Approaching the path, the observance of rules of practice and of ritual can easily evoke and control the elemental forces. So the ray of ritual, absolutely, and the magician. And I'm sorry about the noise that's coming through here at the moment, but if it's indeed coming through, the ritualist, the shaman, the ceremonialist, these are the key factors. And of course, ceremony and ritual will be coming in far more stronger as we move into the Aquarian age, which of course is ruled by Uranus, the ruler of the seventh ray. And we have something here in the chat. Claudia says, as we learn about the rays, I'm still trying to understand if part of our evolution is to experience all the rays within our ashram. I guess. I don't know. I'm sorry, I can't answer that. Whatever ashram you may be part of, you're going to have the soul ray of that ashram, which is your soul ray. But your personality ray and your other vehicle rays can be entirely different. So whatever ashram you're in, you're going to get a thorough work out in all the rays in all incarnations. I did mention before in another class that the soul ray only changes once when the person who is evolving in their consciousness moves from one of the rays of attribute, 4, 5, 6, and 7, to one of the 3 rays of aspect. That only happens once in the whole series of thousands of incarnations. Rachel asks, apart from the soul ray, do the rays of all the different bodies change in every incarnation? No, I don't think so. If you read the Discipleship of the New Age books by the Tibetan, where he's talking directly to 4 groups of disciples he had over a period of 30 years, some of whom were well known publicly, you'll see that I think he comments at times that, you had a 5th ray personality in your last life and you've got the 5th ray mind in this life and things like that. So there's so much we don't know, but not all the rays in all the bodies change in each incarnation to answer your question. And so that concludes this week. As the next slides here are the various personalities that that we discussed last week, which I wanted to discuss this week. We kind of did it back to front because all the personalities really bring the whole first 2 classes on the rays together in many ways. But not to worry, we've got the information out there anyway, and that concludes our 3rd and final class on the rays. We'll go on to another class that's on the agenda next week.